Welcome to the round table. My name is Clement O'Gara and I'm your host as we discuss music in St. Kitts and Nevis. The last time we were here, we discussed the many factors that ails the industry in our beautiful Twin Island Federation. In this edition, we will try to find some solutions that can and will bolster the musicians, the artists, engineers, and any other person associated with the music industry. Okay, so let's get straight to the bass drum. Joining me is Jamster. He's DJ, announcer, music critic. Azim Bailey, sound engineer technician, and Adrian Lamb, sound and production coordinator. Our fourth guest will be you, the audience. Listen for the cue when we will ask you to help us find solutions to the non-existent music industry in St. Kitts. And as I said, we were here a couple weeks ago discussing this very topic. We talked about a lot of, what ails the music, some of the stuff that we think is causing us to actually have, a non-existent industry in St. Kitts. Tonight, as I say, we're going to try to find, reasons why and how we can actually move the bar, change the game, so that at least someone from St. Kitts, would be signed by a major label and their music, play in the markets where everybody else music play. I want to say good evening to you gentlemen. I'm going to start with Jamster. Kind of just, your thoughts about the music itself in St. Kitts. What we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the music, talk about it, and then we can move into the business portion of the discussion.
Well, last time we talked about, I guess we laid the groundwork for a lot of the ails, the ailments and the ails of the music industry, such as it is here. And for the next 2 hours, we're going to be aiming at outlining suggestions and maybe remedies for some of the things that we think can be fixed, and some of the things that for the long haul we're really going to have to keep working on. And I'm just hoping I'm hoping we get some great feedback and questions from the listening audience, the viewing audience.
And what about you, Azim? What is this? What is the state of music here in St. Kitts? St. Kitts Nevis, that is.
The state of music. It's a very loaded question, but I think based on what we discussed the last time, I think it's evident that there's things happening here that really don't lend itself to the music being embraced outside of St. Kitts, our local culture, or maybe even regionally, the Leewards and stuff like that. But we also acknowledge that there's a lot of talent here. So it's how are we going to develop that talent and package it properly so that our artists and all the people that are involved in the industry could actually make it outside of St. Kitts, maybe the region, and maybe be worldwide.
All right, and Adrian, what are your thoughts on that? I think people are passionate about it, as we can see based, from the comments that we got on the last show, and that's the reason why we're doing a second part. Adrian, you've been around for a long time in different capacities.
Good evening, Monarch. There are many things that I think we need to get together at the present time. Education, I think, is probably the foremost thing that we need to do in both of the areas that we defined the last program we had, which is education in the business of music and education in the music itself. And in the music, I'm including recording studios, engineering, all the peripheral activities that goes. One of the things I did in preparing for this show was look at events around the world. Did you know that in the US economy, one of the biggest industries is the music business, the movie business, and the music business, if you add them together? But it doesn't end there. It also contributes to nearly every other special event you have music, whether it be sports. The Super Bowl is an example of use in sports. The festivals that go all around the United States, all sorts of festivals. Music is the big thing that brings people together. But it also motivates and mobilizes tourism. Trinidad Carnival is exported because it also generates tourism coming in. When Carnival is finished, you know, Monarch, it's exported all around the world. Canada, the US, into Europe. The musicians travel, and that's money coming into Trinidad.
Correct.
Same thing with Jamaica. Reggae is the biggest export I think Jamaica has. But the governments have not quantified it, and sometimes it's difficult to really know the value that's coming in from these things. But once you identify it, it's a way of building our economies in the Caribbean. You know, getting these special events, but also developing your artists so you can export whatever form, whether it be services or the artists themselves performing, the music, the whole, you know, 100% of the pie. There are many things, and right now Caribbean music is definitely one of the important elements in world music and music as a whole in the pop music area. So these are things that we need to capitalize on. In St. Kitts and Nevis, in particular, I think we have to be careful and make sure that what we're looking at, the kind of music we're producing, is something that can be bought and sold outside where the money really is. Because the money isn't in St. Kitts and Nevis. When Mr. Blackwell took over Bob Marley, I mean, he did things to the music that he encouraged things to be done that weren't been done before, you know. And if you notice, an album like Legend is still number one on the charts. If you look at the classic Billboard charts, it's there for the last 20 years. It's like it's a brand new album.
Yep.
So these are things we need to look at carefully. Soca is now going through a whole new phase, and you have Montano on one side doing a certain type of music, and then you have Bunji Garlin doing another kind, slightly different, and going out into the wider world and being very successful, both of them. So how do we get our artists out there? Can they survive in the music that's really popular in St. Kitts, or do they have to morph it and change it a bit to make it palatable outside there? It's not always an easy thing, but it can be done.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of young people who are writing music that won't get popular in St. Kitts, but can possibly get popular outside of St. Kitts. How do they get into those markets? And this is where we really need to talk.
Yeah. And I mean, a very interesting point about, I mean, the artists themselves. You mentioned people like Bunji Garlin, who won one of the American awards the other days,
right.
DET awards. I mean, these people are considered
He was
stars.
on 106 and Park about
Correct,
2 weeks ago.
correct.
Which, I mean, that's amazing. But I mean, we would call it soca, but, you know, but
Fusion.
it's breaking. It's a fusion, you know, it's breaking. So he's now...
And people are always looking for that. I mean, that's the reason why since 1996, I think Sagabar and Tantan has been a feature of the Olympic opening ceremony. As you were talking about exporting the talent, this was exported from Trinidad as far back as 1996.
That's right.
I mean, they've been a part of it. But going back to talking about Bunji and Marshall and some of these guys, I mean, I think that that's one of the issues that we face here in St. Kitts Nevis. When we look at how do we determine, I mean, who is a star? I mean, we hear so much about some of the guys who, I mean, you know, are coming up and they're singing, they got music on YouTube, and they're performing on all the local shows here. How do we determine who is a star? Because eventually a star will have to take the music outside of St. Kitts. Jamster, you play a lot of music on the radio. How do you determine what songs you want to play?
You know, that's interesting because...
Well, I mean, I'm asking that question, of course, though, still with the thought in mind, how do we determine a star?
Because, you know, it's like it's a 50-50 thing, because sometimes I'll add a song to the playlist, and I'm playing the song. I'm like, I'm hearing something here. This is a great song, and it doesn't go anywhere. And then sometimes, and then you find what happens is a song that I listened and kind of was dismissive to. The song takes off, and you're like, I didn't think that song was so hot. But sometimes it's just repetition. Sometimes it's just hammering people over the head with stuff. A lot of the times, like one of my problems with hip hop now, a lot of the best hip hop isn't really successful. But what happens is there's a lot of payola going on in the United States, where a lot of these
Only in the United States?
trust me, I've heard of it happening in Antigua and around the Caribbean. But the point I'm making is, as long as people are prepared to pay to get something played, no matter how crappy it is or no matter how good it is, and a DJ doesn't care and he's going to hammer you over the head with it for the next 3, 4, 5 months, anything can become a hit. But aside from that, it's a feeling. You can hear a hit. You can hear a hit when you hear it, for the most part.
Have we heard any in St. Kitts Nevis for?
I'll tell you.
How long ago have we heard one?
I'll tell you 2 songs that gave me that feeling. That song, the core song from last Culture with
Love Me Festival.
yes.
Deli Ranks.
When I heard that
and
song,
Miko.
I was like, yes, it's funny. It's just a feel thing. It's just something about this song. What else? What other songs I would say are like bona fide hits? And even if somebody decided to try and get that song to go to the next level, I think at the very least that song could catch on if it was marketed properly. Could catch on in the other islands. That matter as far as soca go.
And I guess we gotta get to that point is how do we get that music out there? But anyway, Adrian, you book a lot of artists. I mean, local, mostly probably international, but I know you've booked a lot of local artists in the past. I mean, how do you determine who you book? I mean, because we're looking for these stars, and I mean, it seems as if that it's impossible to find. I mean, anybody out there that's consistent in what they do. I mean, so that we can have, people rallying that flag behind them.
Well, I must say, when I book artists for music festival, it's not me alone. We usually have a little committee that puts together and goes to the artists. But if I'm doing a show and I'm looking at artists, there are many things I would look at, or even if I'm going to make a recommendation to a group of people as regarding artists, there are certain things that have to be in place. Number one, if we're dealing with a festival, and it's not just the St. Kitts Music Festival I'm talking about, but I would imagine if somebody in similar to me, the producer in St. Lucia, or the producer in Tobago or Barbados for sure, would look at the same criteria. Number one, who can draw people through the gates? That's the obvious first and foremost item. Or if you're looking at tourism like we are, what is going to bring people to St. Kitts? The two don't always go together in terms of what can bring people through the gates locally, local people I'm talking about, and who going to bring people to St. Kitts. What the local population wants to see does not always mesh with what somebody would come from Antigua or Dominica or St. Martin to see. If you get the two together for a big event like the music festival, you're doing well. For the local events now, obviously, you're dealing primarily with the local population. Therefore, you look at who is popular and who is not. Now, the local artists, there are some that are popular. There are some that are popular in certain places, and obviously with a certain demographic. So if you have an artist who is popular with the 15 to 20 age group, it doesn't mean that you're going to have a big crowd because the 40-year-olds ain't coming, or the 30-year-olds mightn't come. So some of them only cater to one demographic. Some are a little broader. It depends on the music. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I keep telling people, and Monarch, you might debate me on this, I keep telling a lot of the older connoisseurs, the purists, that Calypso seem to be not well at this time. Let me put it like that. It's definitely, I think,
very mild,
in the
sir.
ambulance heading for the hospital, because soca, which has evolved over the last 20, since Shorty came up with the term, has evolved and is now directly, the young people are now embracing it here. And in all the countries, the Soca Monarchs, as you know, is a big show. And I think it will happen in St. Kitts. It's just taking a little time. But we have also seen the demise in terms of the amount of people attending, say, the Calypso show. Calypso is not traveling the way it is because it has become so localized. And what they're singing about, a guy in even as close an island like St. Martin, unless he knows the politics of St. Kitts, the tunes mean nothing to him.
Correct.
Can't relate.
But if I sing wine, 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 everybody knows what I'm singing about. So the party music is becoming the big music. No, the thing about the party music that we have to understand, I think, yes, it's about groove, but the melodic ones seem to be the ones that get in the extensions in terms of how long they get popular. Because if the hook is melodic and it has a catchy hook, and this is where the writing skills and education about writing and melody and so is so important, then we have music that can last.
Correct. Hey, Azim, you've played music and worked with a lot of stars. I mean, what are we lacking?
What are we lacking? Well, use the term stars, right?
Don't get him started.
But like Adrian said, you have to be aware that there are people that appeal to certain demographics.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's a term, ghetto star, you know what I mean? And some people, their music, their art appeals to persons from a certain social class, right? A certain age group. So when we talk about getting music out there, what we're really talking about, we're trying to ship out something that really isn't made for a worldwide audience. Are we really trying to develop artists that really put out music that would appeal to that audience, right? And I feel that, like I said, professionalism, the way that we conduct ourselves, the way that we market our product and brand it is very important. When you go to a promoter like Adrian, as an artist, and you want to get on a show, it doesn't make sense that you go to him and just be like, I want to be on your show, and put me on because I have a song, right? Persons need to understand that, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to look at it, a song is not enough. Talent is not enough. There are a lot of talented people playing in subways in New York. You look at the pop charts, there are persons on the pop charts who maybe can't read music, maybe can't play instrument. And you have jazz performers who are virtuosos at their craft, who aren't as popular, right? So, bearing that in mind, what it is that sets some artists apart from others in terms of their reach, and it's the way that they package themselves, the way they present themselves, the way they carry themselves. And I feel that's something that's really lacking here in St. Kitts.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I think we're going to pick up right on that point, because, I mean, it's lacking in St. Kitts because I don't think that we have the business acumen to, I mean, really make the music. Well, we haven't shown it thus far, and hopefully by the end of the night, somebody may, get an idea as to how to at least, step out of the box and, make us the next Elimat. Anyway, we'll take a break from the round table and we'll be right back.
Hi, St. Kitts Nevis. I am Kiana Hobson, the 2013 Kittitian Superstar Champion. And when I'm watching ZIZ, I'm drunk in love.
Want to get the latest news and information on demand? Check out zizonline.com. Our website is updated daily to bring you all the latest local, regional, and international news. Gone abroad and miss home? Check out zizonline.com for our live streams and uploaded local content. We're also on Facebook. Like our page and receive photos, info, and updates directly on your newsfeed. Living on the go? Then our new mobile website can work for you. Visit zizonline.com and get all the information you need on your phone's browser. zizonline.com, reaching you wherever you are.
Good evening, St. Kitts. Good evening, Nevis.
It is a historic moment for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Special good night to those radio listeners, those viewing on television, and those following us via the internet.
And one of the things that I would like to see established in the CPL here in St. Kitts, as we can recall, the many entertainers, Gravy from Antigua, you had King Dial from Barbados, and a few others further afield.
Cricket World Cup 2007 proved that we are ready for the big league. Welcome back to the round table, and we're here in part 2 discussion of the music industry in St. Kitts and Nevis. And as you know, during these breaks, we do have a lot of chatter going back and forth. So I want to go to Jamster, who we talk about creating. I don't know whether it's the ghetto star, the superstar, or whichever star. It doesn't happen with any kind of lyrics. What do you think about that?
Well, we have a lot of great songwriters here, as anywhere else. But one of the things, if we're striving for that next hit, we're striving for that seminal St. Kitts Nevis song that's gonna make us relatable and marketable outside of the region, or even the region. That's a good start. We have to look at the subject matter. One of my big pet peeves, as I'm pretty sure I know that's what Azim was talking about. One of my big pet peeves with a lot of the soca, for example, is that if I take 60 soca songs right now, about 50 of them are about wine this and wine gal and this, that. And my problem is...
And rum too.
Well, yeah, and rum. But the point I want to make is, look at some of the songs, that have been successful. Let me just deal with the recent past. Differentology. You listen to the lyrics. It paints this picture of, revelers waking up to go for Juve. It's a really simple concept, but it works. And he's not talking about wine. Look at First Time by Destro. The point I'm trying to make is, we have to start broadening the subject matter. And we have to start thinking relatability and marketability. The bands have to stop abusing one another. That's one of the big things. You never hear Atlantic going after Ecstatic and YK All Stars going against going. You never hear them cussing Crossfire. You never hear Crossfire cussing Jabby and this kind of thing.
But that's because they're not the only 3 people that are up for road march every year.
I don't even think that's the problem. I just think that the small-mindedness just infuses everything, and corrupts everything. We need to get to a point where people are thinking about, how can I write a song that isn't talking about some street up Mac night that somebody in Antigua never heard about, or somebody in Trinidad never heard about. We have to start thinking about universal themes that are going to translate to everybody from a songwriting standpoint, and also writing the songs in such a way. Coming up with sweet melodies, that's pretty easy. I think catchy melodies, that's not exactly something that we struggle for. But it's the subject matter. And coming up with a marketable package, that might actually take even more work than a lot of stuff, because I know we have good writers out there. So,
but Jamster, but let me ask you a question. How many times do you see the local artists or the bands allowing persons to come in and write for them?
Thank you.
That's very rare.
The spirit of collaboration, the culture of collaboration needs to. I wouldn't even say grow. It needs to start, because I keep telling people, Michael Jackson was a great songwriter in his own right. One of Michael Jackson's biggest songs was written by R. Kelly. People don't know this. You're Not Alone was completely written and produced by R. Kelly. Anybody ever said Michael Jackson can't write? But this is a problem we have around here. The cultural collaboration extends to using outside producers. We have a lot of Svengali type guys around here in some of these bands who think they can do everything. No man is an island. If you really want to take it to the next level, maybe they don't want to take it to the next level, as him. It could very well be that.
Maybe, you never know.
It seems preposterous to even suppose, but maybe they don't really care. They just want to be big fish in a small pond. They don't want to be big fish in a big pond.
But I mean, just to go back to the writing, we talk about, I know, and Adrian, maybe we more, than anybody else here, can associate, the type of writing that was done. You got a guy like Winsford Devines, who, I don't know how many, what percent of Sparrow songs that he wrote.
Yeah.
He gave me some stories just sitting around him in Trinidad, giving me stories about, people, how he, what he did and how some of these songs came about and stuff like that. We talk about Shelley Tobit in Antigua, with Short Shot. I don't understand it because.
But also this year, Skinny Fabulous from Montana.
Live your life.
That's right.
Yes. So and
Exactly.
Kitchener's son, who does a lot of work with Montana as well.
Yes.
So and you're right. That's one of the things that I see that to me is lacking. The collaboration everywhere you go. People are putting pieces together, people from different regions, different cultural background, who, are creating something that can run in Trinidad, something that can run in New York with the Spanish community. And I'm thinking about Marshall, Montana, and Pitbull. We have nothing of that nature in
Exactly,
St.
and you have all this great cross-pollination going on, because that's taking collaboration to the next level. Cross-pollination, and you have Destra, of all people. Destra has a reggae track now,
Right.
just as good as anything by Alain or any of the females. So any reggae artist with Peter Morgan from Morgan Heritage. And the point that I keep making is, we have to start thinking outside the box if we want to get to the next level.
Correct. And I think thinking outside of the box also includes some sacrifice. I don't know if some of these guys are prepared to make the sacrifice. It seems as if everybody's prepared to make money, but nobody's prepared to make the sacrifice to get to the next level. How do we get somebody signed? How do we get somebody signed on a label, on a real label?
Well, actually, I don't. Okay, while I understand what you're saying, when you say the real label, because you have a lot of little really productive production houses.
Let me explain.
Indie groups and indie labels.
But let me explain. Let me explain myself.
I know what you mean.
When I say on a real label, I mean a label that's making something. Either from digital sales or from CD sales, or they get the song out there, to a point where, people are rushing this performer to perform.
Distribution deals.
Well, a few things have happened, Remember a few years ago, VP had a Small Axe track on one of their Soca
Zone at the time.
Soca Zone.
Yeah.
But whether there was any follow-up in terms of anybody going to VP and say, listen, this is what we have for this year. Y'all interested in any songs? In terms of shopping a song, which is what a publisher would do.
Correct.
There's nobody doing that here because, number one, if the music is even registered with a society, there's no publisher working this music.
Right.
And that's one of the things that need to happen. A lot of people in Antigua are writing for Trinidad and Barbados are artists. Onion wrote tunes for Square One and Alison Hines. You have Red Boys writing in Barbados but there's a team in Antigua that's also writing for some of the Trinidad soca artists. So they're hopefully making some money. Might be small, but it's a start. We don't have anybody here, I'm aware of writing for anybody outside there, and whether or not they have tried, I really don't know. But this is what needs to happen in order for us to start to break in terms of not in the international, but the Caribbean market. The collaborations that Jamsa spoke about. The only person I know really maybe did a few collaborations was Masood Siddiqui in the past. He did some locally, and then and maybe I think Crucial had one with a Jamaican artist. Didn't Crucial have a but he has with somebody younger. He has something coming out now with somebody younger artists locally.
Locally, yeah.
But apart from those two, I'm not aware of any other collaborations between. I mean, the writers for the bands only write for the bands. They don't write for anybody. I mean, they help in terms of the music, the arrangers. But this is what is not happening, and that's what needs to happen. We seem to think that we only stay within the organizations that exist in right now, and you don't cross-pollinate, as it were. And then we don't do that with people in the other islands.
Let me ask you a question, Adrian. You think is an issue of music being something that feeds the ego as opposed to feeds the pocket, or feeding? because when you see somebody hold on to something like that and continually make it about themselves, I mean, you have to call into question that person's humility and why they're doing what it is they're doing.
Good question.
So I mean, it seems to me when you have persons keeping things so in-house, and not only keeping it in-house, but then going after somebody who trying to do the same thing they're doing. I mean, your collaboration is so far away from what's possible in that scenario, simply because the ego and the lack of humility really plays a part in what a person is able to do. I mean, I've been contemplating, I'll make a confession. I've been contemplating working with a local artist, right? To help to develop and all of this, and see if we could do some of the things that you've been talking about. And I have one prerequisite. The first thing, you have to be able to listen. And unfortunately, it seems as though that one prerequisite eliminates about 95% of the artists. Just the fact that they're not willing to learn and listen, and sometimes you have to ask yourself what it is that you're so proud about. Because it doesn't matter if you have a Grammy or if you win 10 Grammys. I mean, I think humility is something that could help anybody reach even further than they are, being willing to learn. And the fact that we've been going over and over this cycle where artists come up and bring out songs. Every year, bands bring out songs. And still, there is no headway. You have to ask yourself, well, is it that we're not willing to learn? Because if other people doing it, it's not that we can't do it. It's just maybe we refuse to do it.
Yeah, and I know we've heaped a lot on the plate of the artist, the musician, and people generally in the industry. To be fair to them, though, I mean, they might not be able to do it alone.
One thing I want to add to the discussion. I think that we have taken the rivalry, like in most other facets of our society, a bit too far. For instance, if I am a member of one of the major bands and I happen and Asim is a member of another band and we decide we're going to do a collaborative effort, the fans out there sometimes tend to get in between. They discourage that kind of collaboration.
But you're going far. What about if I'm a bassman in one band and the bassman for another band can't make it tonight?
Well,
it's almost unheard of for me to go and just fill in, like simple things like that. Like
it's like treason.
Yeah, it is like treason.
So the fans dictate a lot of this. That's what I'm hearing, that the fans
All
dictate.
Aboard was written from Crossfire, Edwin Yearwood, for what's the name of the vocalist Atlantic had at the time who sang it? And that was
Peter Silois, was it?
No, they were going to Trinidad at the time, so they were. But it was written by Edwin, and he gave one of his biggest tunes to another band. We don't think like that. Pharrell Williams right now has Happy. which I was reading something 2 days ago, which said that his producers his executive producers, that he been giving away his biggest song. So
Actually, that song was written for CeeLo.
Yeah.
That's
and
right.
CeeLo recorded the song apparently, but CeeLo's handlers didn't like it. So CeeLo liked the song, recorded the song was ready to go, and his people decided no. And
and his executive producer decided, listen, you're going to keep that song. Now, this is what the cross-pollination that we talking about. Because basically in Syncits, at the present time, in terms of studio, we don't have very many producers who take things under the umbrella and start to work it. The producers are the bands, and they see it the way they want.
Yes,
And then the producers are the one or two keyboard players who work with artists who just bring and they shuffle them in and they shuffle them back out, because they don't really pay a lot of attention to the artists and help them to develop the music, change up a bit of things. And, you know, the ideas have been out there for, I mean, we have writers as simple as they might seem, who create good hooks. Remember No Hurry? No Hurry but it needed some time to work out certain things. The same thing with a lot of other artists. Nowadays, I find that we have people in studios who just jump, say, you ready to record, come in, you record. They don't help you to tweak your melody, to make it sweeter, or to do, you know, and this is where I think the education element comes in. Because last week, the last program, I said something which I just want to make sure the public out there understands. When we said that the education and the music, it was a caller who talked about writing music. Nothing wrong with learning to write music, and the more you have under your belt in terms of education, the better it is for you. There are those people who are going to teach themselves, who are going to be very good, who hear by ear. Now, some of those people are going to hear things that somebody who writing music might not hear.
Right.
And that's the difference. The people who bring it together, more power to them, because there are very few of those who can really pull it two together. But both are educated differently, because one ear is going to work very well and the other one is putting it down on a paper or how they might play it. But they can tweak the melody either way, whichever way the skill they have to do it. And this is where I don't see musicians coming up right now that really going and practice and learn music and just practice and so that they can get better at their skill. Not just arranging, but I'm talking about playing the instrument they're on. I see a lot of people playing music, but all they're gonna learn that tune, and most of the tunes, that the progressions are very simple. So they're not. So when it comes to them as players or working their art, they're not very good, because, as Asim just pointed out, there are very few players. There are only a few of them. There are one or two that can shift from one band to the next and go and play, because they have to go and practice for a long period of time to get down the material. But if you have skills, then you don't need to practice. You could play. Some of them you could play almost by ear, because then this is simple music.
Right.
Once you have the feel, you know. So these are things that we need to work on, and this is where education for the artists, I think, is very important.
And I mean, didn't we have a situation, I mean, like that, where we can equate Elimat and Georges who probably pursue, I mean, you know, the academic, you know, portion of music, where Elimat was just, I mean, you know, it was all up here. I mean, I saw him sit down in the studio, and I mean, you know, and these guys, as you say, going back, I think, for me, and I recorded with both of them, so, I mean, you know, I know that they don't just sit down and allow you to sing. I mean, Kenrick Georges produced, when he produced a song, I know he tell me, I mean, him and Obstinate went, I mean, they almost come to blows, because, I mean, you know, hey, listen, I'm the producer, I mean, you know, you sing, I'm hearing you, so I can tell you, I mean, you know, no, not that way, this way.
Georges wanted to change one note, maybe a seventh to a major seventh or something, and just one note, and Obstinate, though, like, he got to hate a few times before he understood.
He named Obstinate. He named Obstinate, so you don't expect it.
Well, but I mean, but this is artistic differences. I know a lot of people I work with, we used to have that, but it's something that makes it better. At the end of that, you come out hopefully with something that's better than where you started. And hopefully it doesn't become personal, you know, but it's a creative decision and debate which one are going to really work and sound better. And sometimes you take risks. You hear music coming out today with a few things that might not be the norm, but they take risks, and when they work well. When they don't work, they fall. Yeah. But if you want to make the big money, get out there, you have to take risks. Differentology was a risk. It sounded totally different to what we are accustomed to hear, but it caught on. There's a fire on the inside of that just is different. This, when Arrow came out with Hot Hot Hot, I mean, it had elements that you didn't even normally hear in the soca at that time. They sound normal to us now, after, 20, 25, 30 years.
Yep.
So, in our music, I think, I'm talking particularly, about the soca music that we have, whether it be the bands or the artists, I think that we've been a bit static for the last 20 years. We now 2014. In 94, the music was not that much different to what it is now. And some of the younger soca artists that I'm hearing, some of them have more creative ideas than some of the ones who've been around.
Yeah. Yes.
But they haven't had the opportunity to really bring them forth.
Yeah.
And as regarding, a lot of things going to be changing, whether we like it or not, in the next couple of years. And I don't mean that they're going to be purposely changed. They're just going to change, and you're going to wonder why they change.
They change or die. That's what's
Exactly.
going to happen.
In fact, if you, to continue your point, if you notice, you remember the days of the bands in Trinidad winning the road match gone by the wayside too.
Right.
I'm wondering if these bands here don't change, that's what's going to happen to them too.
In the next 5 years, the bands won't decide. Well, right now it's changing, but that's why the opposition to the way it's done is so, because it's going to change. The DJs will decide who, as more DJs get out there, will decide what the road match will be.
And you know what happened? I mean, I think that we took a step here at Sugar Mass last year in the right direction. I don't think, me personally, as someone who, and Azim was there with me as well too, who, I mean, instrumental in reviving Soca Monarch back in 2010. I mean, I don't think enough attention was paid to the best crop of soca that we've had in a long time, or probably ever. I mean, in terms of the modern era of soca, I mean, the airwaves, and Jamster, you can, substantiate this. The soca music dominated. I mean, for once it wasn't, you know what, we can't wait for the bands to come out. We got 1 million people log on the internet.
But Manan, let me ask you a question. As a Calypsonian, right?
Former Calypsonian?
I'm still a Calypsonian. I didn't say former. As a Calypsonian, the discussion here is shifting to Calypso and soca a bit. So let's talk about it. Would you agree that the Calypsonians have shut the door on the popular music? They have become, they're singing only music of one ilk, if you want, and they have left the party music to the soca guys. So therefore, for a Calypsonian to sing a soca tune, they're very, very few. I can't even think of one. Maybe if you write a tune now, I could see you singing a soca tune still. Because I don't know if you know. But you go to the Calypso show, and you don't, even the tents, you don't see very many party tunes out there.
Or party beats even.
Exactly.
I mean, because you listen to Calypso finals in Trinidad, and you hear beats that, I mean, you can actually groove to. I mean, the only person, to be fair, that usually does something like that, the Reigning King, where he was singing a serious message. I mean, and he put a little beat behind it. Go ahead.
Even him, remember Sunday Juve?
Correct.
Remember Sunday Juve was a big hit. It was a party song. It wasn't a strict message. It was witty. And I think that's, for me as a young person coming up, and I like Calypso. And going to the Calypso show, it's very difficult to sit through a 3-4 hour show, right? Half the songs are political and the other are social. There's hardly any witty songs in a Calypso Monarch final in St. Kitts for years now.
Well, I call that the chocolate syndrome. We stuck in the chocolate syndrome in the Calypso because a lot of the tunes, they have lyrics for days singing about but when you finish, there's no melody. You can't remember the tune. But
and no
the last 3 years,
either.
the soca tunes, especially groovy, have been very, very good. We have some really, and I don't even think that we have packaged it and sent it out, because there's a lot of that music that could get out to the other islands if it was done properly. We have people writing some very good tunes.
Or reaching out to some of the top people, producers in the industry, because we had guys who worked in St. Vincent, in Dominica, and Trinidad for the last soca season here in St. Kitts. And I mean, I see something there.
No, it's gonna happen.
I see something, and I mean, I think that you said 5 years. I think it's going to happen sooner than 5 years.
I give credit to the chairman for the last few years of the Carnival Committee for sticking with the soca show in such a big way, because I think it's going to pay dividends in the years to come. It's an investment that's going to happen, and when it does happen, that is one of the areas that we could get out of in terms of getting into the money in the wider Caribbean and the wider world, and getting the development of because the other area, the dance hall, and so there's a lot of creativity there within our ranks in St. Kitts and Nevis there, but it's the production that we lack in a bit, because the production isn't up to the same standards as some of them are, but not all of them. But some of the good material isn't produced well, and somebody, so. But there is material out there that I have heard that is very, very good.
Right.
It's just to get it out. Now, unfortunately, some of the artists, some of them are not stage people yet. They can be, but they need work.
Yeah.
And this is the area, even from Jamaica. I mean, we have seen artists with very popular tunes come to St. Kitts and can't deliver them.
Correct.
Because we have seen the vintage come who don't have the hot tunes, but they deliver.
Right.
So we need to pull that together. But these are areas that we have to work on.
Yep.
And I think the talent, some of the talent is there, but the missing link is the production. We need producers who are musicians who go here and say, "Boy, this tune has potential." Take it, tweak it, or get the people who can help them to tweak it, and then get the artist out there and get him to sing, or match it up with artists who can. So the person who write the song might want to sing it,
Right.
but he might not be the right person to sing it.
Collaboration again.
And that's a collaboration that Asim is talking about. We don't have that.
Yep.
We need people who are going to pull those things together and tie different people together. And then we see with Berris and Shaggy and everybody in Jamaica gets together at some point.
And if you look at how strategic a lot of these, I'm not saying a lot of times when these collaborations happen, yeah, it's really because maybe Berris and Shaggy are buddies, but a lot of the times it's where the management people are sitting and they're thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure that Marshall's song, Possessed, I'm thinking that's Marshall's next frontier for a market, Africa. And Marshall probably figured, he lives out in California, I would not be surprised if he probably met them out there. He like, hey, maybe I should get together with Lady Smith Black Mambas to do this song.
Right.
Because that's getting your foot in the door for the next frontier for soca.
But not only that, soca music has so much similarities to some of the music coming out.
Yeah, comes from the same place.
I mean,
But
even
the
locally.
Afrobeats
Exactly.
that's popular right now.
Yeah.
Is I mean you
So
can
close.
it's
soca.
I mean, you can dance. You can dance the same
it's all
way.
African.
But look at
Johnny
it.
in the history, the first program. I mean, it's all African.
But
So
look at it. We had it here
Exactly.
locally with Nicha B, Bounce and Skank. That was a big hit. A few carnivals ago. That was really a rhythm for a Kenyan song. I think it was a Kenyan
there you
song.
go.
Yeah, it wasn't made in
It
St.
wasn't
Kitts.
made.
It was a rhythm that they found online, and he wrote that song. It was a big song in our carnival as a soca song. So I mean, that's a market that we could really tap into, and those collaborations make it easier
But we
to
have
break
seen it
into
with
the market.
Caribbean musicians
There you
in the past, Kassav, the French African, which is West African thing. I mean, that's why Kassav got so popular in West Africa, because the music is electronic, yes, but it's the same music.
And
It's
we
like
were-
taking the big drum and putting it in a rhythm box, which is basically what we have done.
Right.
And we were able to tap into those sources, but as I was saying maybe 15 minutes ago, I think in St. Kitts though, I mean, we can't leave it, St. Kitts and Nevis, we can't leave it just up to the artists alone. And we're going to take a break now, but when we come back, we're going to look at the support mechanism that, I mean, that needs to be there to prop up the
business.
industry.
We need the business side.
the business side of it. So we're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. Let's talk about the business of music.
Hi, St. Kitts Nevis. I am Kiana Hobson, the 2013 Kittitian Superstar Champion. And when I'm watching ZIZ, I'm drunk in love.
Want to get the latest news and information on demand? Check out zizonline.com. Our website is updated daily to bring you all the latest local, regional, and international news. Gone abroad and miss home? Check out zizonline.com for our live streams and uploaded local content. We're also on Facebook. Like our page and receive photos, info, and updates directly on your newsfeed. Living on the go? Then our new mobile website can work for you. Visit zizonline.com and get all the information you need on your phone's browser. zizonline.com, reaching you wherever you are.
Good evening, St. Kitts. Good evening, Nevis.
It is a historic moment for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Special good night to those radio listeners, those viewing on television, and those following us via the internet.
And one of the things that I would like to see established in the CPL here in St. Kitts, as we can recall, the many entertainers, Gravy from Antigua, you had King Dial from Barbados, and a few others further afield.
Cricket World Cup 2007 proved that we are ready for the big league.
Okay, so we're getting ready to take your calls in a few minutes. For those people who are customer calling 96.1 FM, your customer calling 465-2555 tonight. If you want to reach us, you're going to have to call us via a different number. That's 466-2666. When we left off, we started to talk about, where or what is the support mechanism in St. Kitts that musicians can, gravitate to get education from. What is publishing and copyright, and how do they, go out there? What do they sign? What are they looking for when they sign? Which eventually means that, how do they make money? Adrian, let me start with you. I know when we spoke the last time, we talked about SNAP, which is the local organization. Where do we stand with that?
Well, SNAP is the St. Kitts Nevis Association of Artists and Professionals in the music business.
Mm-hmm.
SNAP is really a music fraternity coming together to deal with all issues, problems, and to push the music industry forward. But I think SNAP deals with what exists. But I think more importantly, the first point you made, the linkage.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down here a number of things that I think we have missing links in terms. We have maybe one or two people, and then we have people who are capable, like Asim said, he was thinking, but haven't gotten into it in a big way. Mainly because it's going to take a lot of time. You're not going to get much thanks, and there isn't a lot of money yet. But it's like gambling. You invest and you might get out some money one of these days. We have a number of people who run small studios, but most of them are what I would call engineers. They learn and they record well, and but we don't have many. We have just a few people who border on management in terms of managing groups and artists. Some have more skills than others. Some have very few skills. Some are just business people who can negotiate, but they don't really understand the music business. Mm-hmm. So if they get out of St. Kitts and they go to other arms, they don't know what exists. They don't know how to get into festivals in other islands and things like this. We don't really have anybody who functioning as agents to take bookings for certain things. We don't really have that, or who looking to get work for artists in other islands. Producers, as I mentioned, I consider myself a producer more than as a promoter, but I do live production. Where we need help, and we also need people who concentrate, is the studio production. but not just producing in terms of executive production, which is the business arm where you make sure your copyright and all these things, the business side of things is done. But to take somebody who has an ear and can hear some, hey, that tune has potential, but I don't want to hear Monarch sing it, I want to hear Jamster sing it, because Jamster voice suit, you know, the way it's done. Somebody who's going to tweak and get a musician and say, well, listen, I hear in this, get a keyboard player to play or help arrange it, to tweak the melody
or
and
to
do
the lyrics even.
exactly, and to get the right beats, you know, try different experiments. But the beats is almost irrelevant because you can do the same tune with 10 different beats and remix it for different markets. If you have a good tune, the first thing you have to have is a good tune.
Right.
So these are the areas I think that we really falling down and we don't have enough people. Now, a lot of these areas you need skills. So education, come back to the education. You have a few people who have gone away and come back, but I don't think that the artists, as we call them, or a lot of them don't have respect for some of these people because they don't want people to take my thing and sweeten it. That is a problem. It's not a new problem. They have some who will give you, a few people who will give you, and once they have confidence, but then you have others who, no, I want to do it the way I want to do it, otherwise we're not doing it. And that is one of the difficulties we have.
Yeah. And that's an interesting phenomenon because, I mean, they read about all these different artists and they see, you know, the kind of people they have behind them. I mean, you know, in order to make them, you know, successful. I mean, I don't think that, you know, Beyonce sits around and don't pay attention to her money. But I can bet you that she have, you know, managers of everything that you can think about. I mean, and that's the reason why she travels with an entourage of what, almost 100
She got
people.
help in every way. Even though she's the producer and the production, she got help. She got people who serious musicians, whether it be keyboard players, drummers who come up with beats and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. I mean, you know, Monarch, you know, it's almost 30 years ago now, eh? But in those days, I mean, I know for myself, you work with Calypsonians, then you work with Ben Jacks, and then you work with Patricia Ross, and you had to be ready because all of them are different genres. So you want to make sure that everybody gets justice in what you do. You work with a reggae artist, but you don't find that nowadays. No, you could specialize, yes, and do one kind of music. There are some people who are successful at doing just one, but you better make sure that, you know, you can take people out of others. I mean, when in the break we were talking about Taurus Riley singing on Bunji Garlin's song. Those kind of collaborations, a reggae artist singing on a soca track, you know. I mean, Beanie Man, quite a few of them now, the cross-pollination is going, and it's growing because they're broadening the base. People who didn't like Beanie Man before, like Beanie Man now, because he on a soca track they like. People who weren't really aware of Taurus, now aware of Taurus. And I think it's, which one apart from Miss Alison Hines who got out a reggae track with somebody also?
Destra.
It's Destra.
Destra,
yeah. Kes had a very good reggae
It's a great reggae. In fact, that spawned a whole album with and that was the biggest song.
So the
Imagine
Trinidad
that.
music and the Jamaican music, whether it be dancehall or reggae.
And by the way, do you guys know that rhythm? Just comes back to, it's almost like St. Kitts is on a different planet musically. Do you know that rhythm was produced in Antigua by an Antiguan producer? That rhythm Tuesday on the Rocks.
Right.
The Gal Season rhythm.
Right.
Antigua.
Well, that's the point I was making, that there are a lot of writers in Antigua who producing good music and
this still blows my mind when I think about it.
And this is where they're making money off of the royalties that they're getting back from the.
Correct.
So the linkages are there in terms of, as again, for the producers, the agents, the managers, the songwriters. So this is one of the links that we need to develop.
So perhaps then the question is making the connection between our artists and some of these people that have these skills. Maybe they're not here now, because I know there are bands in the Caribbean who are managed by managers outside of the Caribbean, sometimes with Caribbean heritage. I also know that there's a lot of Kittitian people not residing in St. Kitts that are involved in the music industry. How about we use their skills, their networks to help to develop what we have going on here? Because the truth is, you're not going to have managers coming out of St. Kitts because if they don't have anything to manage.
Correct.
Right? and it's all dependent. I'm an engineer, right? When I decided to pursue this as a career, I had to take a stance and be like, I cannot depend on a local act to build my career. If the acts aren't moving, then how am I going to move, right? So I had to find ways to put myself in other markets, to network with other acts that might have been doing what it is I want to do, right? And it's not a lot of people that are going to be able to do that, especially now. But once we have artists, once we have the product to market, you'll find somebody to market it. And it's about developing it in a way. For instance, we say now we don't have a lot of agents, we don't have a lot of managers, maybe we don't have a lot of producers. And so what we need to do, like you say, education. Sometimes education comes through experience. If you have an artist who has a good song, good potential, and we have a product that we could market, have it marketed by somebody who maybe not resides in St. Kitts, has the talent, has the network, because that's really what you're paying the manager for anyway, his connections and who he knows. And at the same time, have someone here who has that interest and passion, tag along and learn, you know what I mean? And that way we start developing our own people that could support our industry. Because, like you said, it can't all be about the artists.
Correct.
It can't all be about the singers and musicians. There are people that must support that that whole industry.
And I mean, it has proven to be true in so many instances. I mean, I've had the personal experience of signing with one of the major labels back in the day, Bees. I mean, you know, but I didn't have that much to do with it. I was the artist.
Yeah.
I was the artist, and you know, my manager was the one who went out and sold the song and pushed it in, you know, in the different areas, and they liked it, picked it up, and
I think what Asim just said is very important. But what Asim wasn't saying is like, take Asim. Asim made up his mind that he wanted to be an engineer. Now he's a musician also, right? A very good musician. He made up his mind, but a lot of people think you get from here to here without education. Asim went away and studied. Now that means you have to have, there's a process. Nowadays it's very difficult. You can be an engineer, is a loose term. You can be an engineer where you can be self-taught. Yes, they have some very good engineers, just like the musicians who play by ear, who are very good. But if you, with the digital world nowadays, there's certain things you need to do to understand somebody, to be a real engineer, as I say. You could run wire and you call yourself an electrician, or you could be an electronics or electrical engineer where you understand the guts of what you're doing. A lot of times, a lot of guys do not have a clue why they turn in a certain knob. They just turn in it because maybe it sounds good to them. But education is very important. So you have to have a certain element. You still have to go to school, make sure you study maths. You can be an engineer and you don't have a certain level of maths. Because when you go to the I've been to seminars and you need to know a certain level of maths, otherwise you have no clue of what they're talking about. So when they start running acoustic, you know, for buildings or for stadiums or whatever you're gonna do, if you really want to get to that level, you have to understand certain things. And the same thing for the music. The same thing for the producers. A producer has to know how to manage people, because he might get two guys who have talents, but they're not going to work together. He have to know how to manage those people to get them to work. And that's why a producer in a studio has to have certain skills.
People skills.
It's a learned skill. You know, you got to know to, and you still have to have an ear, because you might know well what chord it is you hear in your head if you're a producer. But if you're a musician who's a musician, then you probably will know. But you mightn't do it. You might work it out and say, listen, let me get this keyboard player who much better than me. And when he put it down, say, no, that ain't what I want. But they will understand your language. So they'll be able to interpret. It's like an interpreter. They can translate what you have in your head and put it on the keyboard.
Hold that there. Let's go to the callers. We promised that we'll have a fourth panelist tonight, and that's the callers and viewers, I should say. Welcome to the round table. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I could barely hear you, but can you hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is Richie Bunton here.
Uh-huh.
Good night to everyone. You guys have a good discussion going on. But however, within the discussion, there's something that being said, and not quite, well, I wouldn't necessarily use the word accurate, but I think certain factors have been overlooked. Adrian mentioned earlier that you don't know any of the Californian that does the soca or say music, but in fact, I have been one of the forerunners in Calypso, or today in St. Kitts, that always record soca music, you know, whether it be groovy or the power. As well as collaboration. You mentioned Masood. One of the first collaboration that Masood Siddiqui did was with me. And that was with me reaching out to Masood Siddiqui. As a matter of fact, I called him on the fly. And the day I called him, he showed up at A. Brown Studio within an hour.
Okay.
And
Richie. Richie, as the Calypso King of St. Kitts, and also as someone who has had the experience of working overseas, being based in New Jersey. And by the way, congratulations on the performance in St. Thomas for their carnival as well. I mean,
Thank you.
And I know you. I mean, you know, you're giving us a lot of your experience or whatever it is. But what would you say? I mean, and I don't know if there's just one thing. I know there's a lot of things. But what would be one thing that you, I mean, you know, would say, I mean, you know, to ensure that, I mean, you know, we really develop a music industry in St. Kitts?
I've been pushing for stuff like that. The first thing you need is finance. We have to create the atmosphere, the climate, financially for it. It doesn't just happen on its own. For example, I'll give you a perfect example. I've been trying to sell this idea to the bands for years because remember, especially back, it is the way this industry is set up in St. Kitts now, the cultural setup. The bands are really in the best position to move forward. And I will tell you what I mean by that. If one artist out of St. Kitts decides that he wants to make a push outside to go and travel and promote and do himself, besides doing tracks as well, he has to go and find the money for airline, hotel, promotion, and pay for a band to either travel or to play for him where he's going to go. A band has the average between 8 and 10 members who are working more regularly than the average soloist. Every performer, they could put a certain amount of money aside. They could target an island, great numbers, let's say a place like Grenada, that let's say is small, actually not really a huge known band in Grenada. I'm going to target Grenada, and that's where we're going to go this year. And we're going to put up our money and go. And this way, before this, we're going to promote our music and stuff there. And I'm going to try to tell them is that in today's world, nobody looks at CDs as money makers. CDs are now marketed and promotional tools.
All right, Richie. Well, thank you very much for calling. We're gonna take another call. Hello, good evening.
Yes, good night. My name is Bernard Lestrade, better known as Jamku. Most likely, everybody on the panel should know who I am.
Yes.
Good topic tonight. Enjoying it as much as possible. Adrian said something about education, and I myself had to take up a course. I have my own students to buy a lot of equipment, and then I had to take up a course to be a certified recording engineer and music producer, and so on. And I think what is lacking on the island is that these guys need to educate themselves about the music industry. They need to know about contracts. They need to know about copyright. They need to know about royalties. And also, the most important thing, marketing. They have so much technology around the place, like social media. You're supposed to use social media, fingertips. Just up to the other day, soca was actually being played in the category on iTunes, which is a good thing. But everybody needs to get on board and take the music industry serious. I think many people, or many artists on the island have this little twilight imagination, thinking that only think it be played as you release music. They don't remember worldwide. You know what I mean? And also they need to touch on collaborations. You know, collaborate with reggae artists, collaborate with hip hop artists. You know what I mean? The sky's the limit. You know, with artists, then I think they have these limitations that cannot go beyond the boundaries of the region. And I think they need to argue. They need to really, really educate themselves about the music industry. They really need to do it, and I think so. It is 2014 now, and I think this time we need to step on board and start pushing the music industry in St. Kitts.
All right, thanks for your call.
Well said.
All right, we got another call on the line, so let's go straight to the other caller. Good evening. Hello?
Hello, good night.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, good night. Well, I've been listening to the program, right? And one of the things I realize is that, right, in truth and in fact, right, St. Kitts, right, and I want to St. Kitts, for a lot of the Caribbean islands, they do not have an existing, they don't have a music industry. For one, a music industry consists of a lot of things. It consists of bodies that do copyright. It consists of label companies. It consists of sound engineers, sound technicians, lighting engineers, lighting technicians. It consists of management. It consists of lawyers. It consists of what you call audio societies. It consists of professional musicians. It's a whole spectrum of things have to work in order for a country to be recognized to have a music industry. Jamaica, right, who have a music industry over 80 years now, right, have all those aspects. So a lot of people think that because St. Kitts produce a music festival is only one aspect of a music industry. A lot of countries have festivals, have concerts, but that don't mean that they have an industry. An industry is a whole corporation of things working together. For a country to have a music industry and all things, that they have to be producing music on a consistent basis. Not some bands produce a CD at carnival time after one event, and then for the rest of the year you don't have nothing else, right? Another thing in St. Kitts that we don't have, that a lot of the developing countries have, not only music, they do what you call, they recycle the resources, meaning that, right, you have people who are engineers and technicians, right? In turn, those will become old, they will retire. You have a young group of technicians and engineers coming up. They would continue to learn the craft. They would continue to develop the craft. So when the older ones go out, you have a next set who would come up and even surpass and reach to the stage as the older ones. What we're doing in St. Kitts is that you might have somebody go out and they gain skills and knowledge, maybe going to university, but then that's only one out of the whole group of the other musicians or whoever, right? When they come back here now, there's not nobody else who taking up that button to say, well, okay, this person have gone out there, they have reached the stage, they have reached to a professional standard. Now I want to be like someone who will take that back, follow in the footsteps. You don't have a process in St. Kitts where we have our resources, our skills and expertise being recycled, meaning that they are continually being upgraded, even though somebody died or gone off the scene. It's like when somebody was doing something and the die and the gone off the scene, that's it. It's not going to happen again until maybe somebody else get that interest and do it. So what we need to do is develop ourselves in thinking in all these aspects in order for us to have an industry. Industry cannot function by just looking at we have musicians or we have bands. Those are only aspects that make up an industry. Industry is a whole conglomerate of things together.
All right, caller, thank you very much. You made some significant points in terms of what we're looking for. We got another call on the line. Thank you for calling. We got another call on the line. Let's go straight to the phones.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Very interesting conversation. I've been listening to it.
Thank you.
And I've noted some points that you would have discussed. Now, the music industry, I think it's well enough. It can go further afield, but there are some issues that we must address in order for it to do so. A couple of them you looked at and mentioned was pushing the music, first of all. If we have to push music in St. Kitts and our local music or Caribbean music generally, we have to look at the persons who promote the music, the DJs who play the music, the radio stations that play the music, because what I find that these persons do, they play music based on their love and their bias. When we play music, it's for the public, the enjoyment of the people, and not about who we're into and what we're for. That's why we play music. So that's one of the first things. Secondly, cross-pollination is important, and I think that musicians in general in St. Kitts can do that, but it depends on the politics that it brings about. For example, you mentioned the thing about Michael Jackson and R. Kelly and writing music. Now, somebody can write music for another, but then after that song or part becomes popular, it becomes a conflict, or the person wants money out of it, or it's their writing that caused the person to be great or to become popular with the song. And these are some of the issues because of our negativity and our low-mindedness. Now, I think we have excellent writers in St. Kitts. We can produce, or there are persons who can write excellent music in St. Kitts. But as we say, there must be a school or some sort of way where these writing can be developed, where other persons come together, the musicians, the writers, and all the other persons involved in order to create such an avenue. Something I noted that Jamaicans have it well, Spanish have it well. I don't know what happened to Kittitians. We're very proud people. We're unique, yes, I agree. But in terms of, we don't like to work with each other. Nobody is getting anywhere with this way. We don't want to work with each other. If I work with you and you get ahead, I feel, well, it's because of me. So we do not pool our energies and effort together to create something good. Now, with the young persons in creating music these days, you find that they want to create a whole album and expect that the whole album is to become popular, instead of working on one song and making that song reach far. So that is a problem with the young people that they have to look at. A problem that I have, and I find when it comes to stuff like music festival and carnival and all of these stuff, in bringing artists to St. Kitts, sometimes we need to look at maybe the method in which to scrutinize to bring them here, in the sense that they produce one big hit. It might be going around the Caribbean, yes, which is good. We know we're not only entertaining Kittitians and Nevisians, but we want other persons from the Caribbean to come. But at the same time, they come and they don't even perform the same one song good. And we find local artists who are inside of the country, they perform the same night and they perform so excellent, but the money that they get paid is way below the person who comes in from outside with one hit. They don't even perform, and these are some of the drawbacks. That's why I think that the musical industry and the people not really getting and pulling together. But we have the energies, we have the effort, we have the technology, we have the intelligence, and we can do this. And with guys like you on the panel, it's something to work on and look towards and putting it in place so we can move forward.
Thanks for your contribution. We definitely agree with you. We're going to hold the calls for a minute. Jamster, she mentioned the DJs. I mean, kind of making this a personal showboat.
Well, I think that would be true for any DJ. Up to a degree, every DJ is going to play stuff he likes. But the thing is, you have to find the sweet spot where you're playing stuff you like and stuff that most of the other people like. But I wanted to address something she talked about. She was talking about, she referenced me talking about R. Kelly and the whole spirit of collaboration thing. The point I wanted to make is that this is exactly what this forum is about. She's saying, oh, well, if that was to happen here, I got the impression she's saying that you would probably have confusion because, well, you won't have a conflict if people would, like Azim's being saying all along and I'm being saying, you have people here who know. I mean, I went off, Azim did music production, I did music production, Adrian, same thing. There's a lot of expertise here, people who just listen. Now, you wouldn't have a conflict with publishing if we have the publishing infrastructure, which says that we have to set up a performance rights society, set up something where, for example, if somebody writes a song, it means that it's going to be properly documented and registered with the correct organization. So if somebody here writes a song, say with Azim and Adrian write a song together and they put it out, why should there be a fight if we get our music industry to a point mature enough and evolved enough where that's not even an issue? Nobody ever heard.
But maturity really, yes, maturity has something to do with it. So let me not say that
Well,
it doesn't.
in the sense of,
but the business aspect, though, I mean, once you're contractually, in compliant, then I don't see where
that was my next point.
Yeah, where it should be a problem. Okay, so if we got more calls, we're going to take some more calls. 466-2666. In the meantime, while we're waiting, I ran into an article from the New York Times, which basically says the music industry, the first media business to be consumed by the digital revolution, said on Tuesday that its global sales rose last year for the first time since 1999. And this was an article written in 2013, so they were talking about 2012, raising hopes that a long-sought recovery might have begun. For years, the music industry's decline looked terminal, with the record companies seemingly unable to come up with digital business models that could compete with the lure of online piracy. Last year, however, digital sales and other new sources of revenue grew significantly enough to offset the continuing decline in CD sales. We're going to discuss that, but let's take this next call and hear what they have to say. Caller, come in. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Mona, Jam,
yes.
Azim, Adrian, Gary.
Hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Gary.
Hey.
Good night.
Hi, good night. Just wanted to share a couple of things with you. First of all, when it came to the education aspect, I'm not certain if you are aware that the CSEC, or the CAPE aspect, that is the advanced level, is going to be introducing a performing arts program. And, they already have the CXC music program, something which I personally am not very too affair with, but it is there. But a big part of the performing arts program is actually going to be the business of music. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is something that is going to be very good and something that we need to encourage our young people to look forward to. I think that they're going to attempt to introduce it next year, but it's actually going to do with all the way to market your music, how to deal with management, copywriting, things like that. And it's actually going to be an A-level subject. So that is something that we can, look forward to in terms of the education. And I just wanted to also endorse what several of you have said about persons not being willing to listen, because I find that is something that is really affecting how people are able to move forward with the music. They're not listening to the persons who are really the experts in the area. And you're aware that I've worked with many, many musicians, And the advantage that those musicians have had is that they are always, or they have been willing to say, well, you know, give me the music and let me deal with it, because they trust you as an expert with the music. And a lot of them are not willing to do that, and partly too because a lot of them are not willing to deal with the collaboration also. But the last thing I wanted to say too is that I think that part of the music education aspect of it that we need to deal with is the whole aesthetics of music. Because I know we are talking about marketing and making money, but we have to realize too that not everybody who is involved with music necessarily does it for the whole idea of making money. And I believe that if we don't allow people to learn to appreciate music and the aesthetics of music, jazz music, classical music, even some of the old calypso or whatever other aspects of music that they listen to, that there's great value in it and they can do it and just learn to appreciate it without somebody saying, hey, yeah, I need to market it, I need to get it sold. And there are a lot of people out there who are writing. I met a lot of people out there writing a lot of great stuff, but they're not necessarily interested in making money from it. And you know, perhaps maybe I'm calling into the wrong show because of that. But you know, but I think that people need to be able to appreciate music from just about everywhere and every style of music. You know, and in terms of the musicianship, you know, as you mentioned, that there's some virtuosos and then hardly making any money because they're not necessarily packaged. And that is true, but some of them don't necessarily want to be packaged because of the, you know, the arena, the way that the circles that they're moving in, they're satisfied that they are doing what they really need to do. And that's basically what I wanted to share.
All right, thank you very much for your call. I mean, I think that that's very important as well, too. But to me, I mean, you know, all that, even the musician who don't really care about making $1 million out of it, I mean, they all become part of the whole package that we're trying to put together. We got another call on the line. Let's take this. Seems as if we lost that one. So go ahead, Jamster, with your point quickly.
Gary, you touched on something. You guys remember after the last meeting, we talked about the possibility of maybe having music appreciation as a class in schools.
Right.
And I think it might not seem like a big thing. Gary said the perfect thing, the aesthetics of music.
Right.
I loved when he said that. And maybe that should be one of the things that we should look forward to down the road. I mean, I would gladly do something like that.
But it's very important, you know. I mean, every engineer, and I could speak about engineers because that's my field, but every engineer that I have met and talked to, and people that I look up to as being doing big things in our field, have one thing in common. They all had that, either they had a good radio station in the area, or their parents listened to all types of music. And it's the same thing for great DJs, great musicians. Just being exposed to different types of music really helps you to develop that appreciation, and also if you want to then take it to another level and perform or make it a career, it really helps you moving forward. And like, I really agree with Gary in that point, because it's something that we've discussed, and I know there was the Ministry of Culture, I had spoken to them about it, and I know they were doing something along that line. But even now, one of the things that I really hope to see changed is in the schools, music is on the CXC syllabus, but it's right now being allowed only to students of maybe a lower stream. And for me, I was in a mainstream class, and music was not an option for me. You understand?
I don't get that.
I couldn't do music. You understand? So
music was for the people who couldn't do math and English.
That's
basically what he's telling you. Anyway, before we continue, let's take this next call and see what they have to say. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead. We're hearing you.
Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
How come I can't hear you all?
We apologize for that, but go ahead. We're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay, and blessed love. You can hear me good now?
Yes.
Yes, good night to you all on the panel there. We're having a nice discussion about the future of the music in St. And I will add on to in Nevis too, because we need to align ourselves as one.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, I find our musicians and the producers are being very tireless in the work for the quest of the rise of St. Kitts and Nevis music to enhance to the outer world. But chewing of social lack of finance, as you have said, social lack of finance, we engage. I'm not seeing our music be on the scene that it need to be. Even though we say we're having protection of property rights and them things, we still are being victimized by the larger companies and out there. And you know about it, Mr. Adrian Lam. You know that. You know that is happening on this scene of music as we rise for this developing nation and even to the Americas. The people have to be united as one to engage in music, how we need to enhance our people. Because the music is about life, it's a passionate, it's about the way how you go around your social living. So you must, as the president said, education, that's a part of the social living in music. You see the condition where you're facing around your livelihood, the environment you see, that you're engaged on the day of their living, that you find our people are being hindered through of our talent that we have. We are naturally talented musicians, is no doubt. St. Kitts and Nevis have naturally talented musicians to contribute to the world of music. Whether in this field of their seat at rap, calypso, reggae, the wilders that we see as smaller than them others contribute, they have done great to this development. But it's just because of the lack of finance that we find we don't get the music pushed as much as we could push. And that's a true fact.
All right, Carl.
And I hope we could work together and engage on that seriously.
Okay, Carl.
We need our people to be rising together, yeah?
Good. Thank you very much for your contribution. And we see a recurring theme in the call so far. People need money. And we agree that people need money.
I'll ascribe the problems to more things than lack of money. I mean, it's lack of good songwriting, lack of vision, lack of just a general lack of. I think I basically said it.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. I mean, I think that money. I think that money is a part of the whole mix. And I mean, it all comes down to, I mean, I guess when we talk about Money Music Festival, because there's always this discussion every year, well, why are we paying the overseas artists X, while we're paying what we call homegrown artists, why? And people, I think people have to understand that, I mean, I don't know of anybody out there who's going to come to St. Kitts and sign any of our artists here in St. Kitts and give them any, major amount of cash.
Right.
I mean, so I think what guys have to understand is that there's, I don't know if you want to call it a chain of command, and that chain of command don't come down, it goes up. So you got to keep stepping up the ladder and reaching to different levels and different people in order for you to make that money. It don't just come. I mean, some people are lucky in that they score one hit, and you may never ever hear about them again, but they make that money. Anyway, I know Azim, you want to jump in on that, but we got another call. Let's give the callers their voice tonight. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening. I've been listening to the program, enjoying it thoroughly. The discussion's fantastic. We have to continue talking off the air with each other in the music industry.
Thank you.
I'm going to agree with the panelists. A lot of good information has been circulating, a lot of good topics being spoken about. I think, we just heard a caller talking about money and the lack of that to fund certain things, but I'm going to get right to the point. I'm a direct person. The onus is on the artist, right? People who are in the music industry and calling themselves artists need to decide, are they doing it for fun or are they doing it as a career? They need to make a choice. When you decide to do it as a career, it's like any other career. You must be dedicated. You must be doing it every single day, right? And we're talking about the music industry, so we're talking about singers, we're talking about composers, musicians. if your instrument is your voice, you need to be singing every single day. If you're a writer, writing something every single day. A producer, in your studio every single day and spending time towards that career. And education is huge. You cannot, again, we're talking about the music industry, but like everything else, you need to educate yourself about your craft. As a singer, you need to learn how to sing. Yes, people have talents and they realize they have, okay, I've got to, come from a musical background, I have a voice. But what are you doing to hone your craft? I would love to know from the singers in St. Kitts and Nevis, how many of them have engaged a vocal coach? When you go to a vocal coach, they open up your mind to so many things you should be doing with your voice to improve your product. Singing is your key. As a musician, you need to understand how to read music, to write music, to play music. You must get your education. As a manager, you need to get educated how to manage, to understand copyright, to a business, the industry, so that you can advise artists or bands who you manage the best way to go about managing their career. So at the end of the day, the artist must invest financially in their craft. If they're not willing to spend the money to develop their craft, they're not going to go anywhere. So what I'm finding and what I'm seeing, there's a lot of people who say they're artists, but they're not dedicated and they're not investing in their career. Everyone's trying to do something for free or underpaying somebody to get something done. We have to respect everybody in the music industry. They have studied, they have earned the right. Once they've invested in their education, they have a certificate behind them. They have studied 4 or 5 years to know their craft. You must remunerate them for their skill, for their talent, for their expertise that they're sharing with you as an artist. The artists have to get serious. They must be dedicated and start working with each other. And I also have someone here who is a DJ from overseas who's going to comment on what we've been listening to.
All right.
Good night, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Night. Good night. All I wanted to say was, is that an artist is a product. And basically, simple like that, one hand can't clap. So, how I look at things is, you have to dance a yard before you dance abroad. So, saying, okay, then you're a good artist and giving them a pat on the back, don't fool their belly. So I believe personally, you see like how you have a music fest, alright, you put on your artist, I'm not calling them local artists, you put on your artist because they're artists. Otherwise you wouldn't have them on the show. Alright, now the ones who you bring in from foreign don't make it, don't eat food. So what then you need to be doing then, if there's an artist then which is shining in the Federation, therefore then I believe something like the Music Fest should break off an additional food and promote that artist and see how far he could go or she could go. That's all I wanted to say. Good night, gentlemen. Blessed love.
All right. Thank you very much for your contribution. And I think the music festival always comes up in this, and I just fear that we never ever have enough time to discuss this. And one thing I want to say before I take this next call is, I think the caller before mentioned, of course, the fact that people need to get paid, and we hear money coming up a lot. And to me, what that does, it reinforces the point that, the music business is not just one faceted where we're looking at just the artists themselves, because promoters now have to position themselves in order to pay the artists so that they can support themselves. Anyway, we're going to go back to the callers one more time. Good evening. Hello?
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry. Hold on. Yeah, good evening.
Go ahead.
Wait. I don't want to disturb you.
All right, we appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
You hear me now?
Yeah, but we still have the feedback.
Okay, you hear me now?
Well, we're hearing you loud and clear, and that's better. Thank you, caller.
Okay. Mr. Jarrow and Mr. Lamb.
Yes.
You know better and more like your panelists. You know, for musicians and calypsonians from St. Kitts, what they need is discipline before they could think about hitting the outer world. You know, you travel, Adrian travel, I travel. You bring artists from St. Kitts. When you're looking for them to play, you can't find them. In New York and in Canada and different places, everything go by schedule. If they call you up and you're in there, that's it, you lost, you done. These guys have to discipline themselves to make the outside market. Not when they leave from here to go to New York, they up and down driving around with friends up and down in Washington and all of those places and so on, and then want to make it big on the chart. So they have to start to discipline before you could get up there.
All right.
The fact remains that money is not the concept for it. Because when you want to build yourself, you go slowly. And when you build yourself and got discipline and thing, you will make all the money in the world. And you know that. And so don't bother with nobody about, well, they should put on these guys from cities on the music festival and pay them this jump clothes and money. Make yourself first. You got to build yourself first. You singing blah, 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 and then you think when everybody come hear you, you put all of them together, nothing else than people go in the stadium. That's it, my little input for the night. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. A very pertinent, contribution as well, because to me, discipline is very important, and dedication as well.
This is why I say this whole question about putting local artists on the music festival, I don't have a problem with it, but the people who complain about the foreign artists being paid more than, well, yeah, your pay is going to be commensurate with your abilities and your overall package. Discipline, that's a big part of that.
But here's one of the things, and I think Adrian mentioned it. Maybe it wasn't. What's the word? Microscope. Microscope is to see, right? What is to hear? I don't know. Amplified. There we go. But Adrian mentioned it earlier. How do you expect to get on the music festival? How do you get this job? How do you get this job if you don't go in and apply and sell yourself to the people who are doing it?
Well,
we're hearing it, and
to be done before you even get to that point. You have to apply yourself to become the best singer, and even with the rudimentary resources at your disposal. You have to market yourself as good as possible within the framework of the limited resources we have here and all that. Of course, we know nobody has an entourage like Beyonce and all these big people, but the point is, you're gonna have people who are gonna rise to the top because of the fact that with the little that they have to work to, they manage to put together a package. They manage to package themselves in such a way that makes them rise to the top.
And that's how you get what you want. People talking about money. Money is not a problem. Getting the money from who have it is the problem. And how you get the money. You understand?
To look at it.
No, the money there.
I know, that's the interesting way to look at it.
But it's how do you get the money?
Correct.
And the truth is, how you get the money is by presenting a case that tell them, if you give me X amount of money, you're going to get X amount back.
Exactly.
And if you can't package yourself in that way, why should anybody invest in you? Because that's what you're asking them to do. Invest in me. So what is the return on the investment? If I can't convince you, understand, we live in an age of entitlement, right? People feel entitled. We feel if I'm St. Kitts, so we're supposed to be on St. Kitts Music Festival. Or if I'm St. Kitts, so the government's supposed to give us money.
I think
this thing doesn't make sense.
All right, give me a second, guys. We're about to start wrapping up. We're going to take a couple more calls. 2-3 more calls, and then we're going to do a quick wrap up. As I say, we never ever have enough time when we're discussing this topic. So let's take the next 3 calls. Go ahead, caller. We're going to give you 1 minute.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
realistically, I think this whole initiative that you guys are doing is timely.
Thank you.
But I also think that the music industry has to have linkages in relation to, okay, we have a tourism product. I know Jamaica has marketed their industry to facilitate their tourism product.
Yep.
And I think that because of our geographical location and size, we are at a minority in terms of getting markets. Nevertheless, I think funding is one of the most important initiatives, because look at the whole thing of studio. We are talking about producers and studio. It takes money to get equipment. It takes money for recording. It takes money to market. And I think this has to be harnessed. It has to have some sort of leadership so that we can more or less market this music to benefit the whole initiative, not only oneself but the industry in terms of tourism. Because we're a small nation. When you have 3 million people in Jamaica, you have about 35,000-40,000 St. Kitts. To pull a big megastar from St. Kitts, it is hard. We know that. But what I'm saying, we need to have those things that are sustainable so that the music industry can help to build our industry. And I think it's full time we establish an association to deal with such matters. I'm a band leader myself, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of initiative to keep it going. So that is just my contribution, how we can harness those talents to make it sustainable at the end of it, because we're in a geographical area that is just hard to fulfill in terms of the music industry. So that's my contribution.
Point well
Thank
taken.
you.
Thank you very much for your call. We're going to take a next call. 1 minute caller, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Clearly, Crucial Donkey highlighted some key areas of both musicianship. I think Donkey spoke about the bureaucracy of the entertainment business. The parents said, well, as I said, many key aspects. However, I don't think any of you mentioned the major solution to entertainers making it in the international world.
Now, you know, Elliot and the Jazz Brass and the Jazz Brass International were the only two musical entities from the Federation that made any mark outside there. The reason is that both bands were fully professional. That was the band's source of income. That was their work. Most musicians in St. Kitts today, the bands are part-time bands. The single artists are also part-time artists. And until you get full-time professional musicians, you are not going to move.
All right, well, that's a very solid point. We're going to let you get that when we're wrapping up. We're going to take the last call, and then we'll go around the table to see if we found any solutions tonight. Good evening, caller. Welcome. Hello? Okay, seems as if we go ahead, caller. Hello? Okay, well, seems as if that we lost that caller as well. So we're gonna take one more. We have one more call. We're gonna take one more call, and then we'll wrap up. And don't forget, we're gonna be back in 2 weeks' time with another edition of the Round Table, and we're gonna be looking at a very powerful topic. Let's take the final call for the program. Good evening.
Good evening. I tend to disagree with that last caller. That last caller, he forget, well, during the time when he come, he forget Token was one the number band up in New York also. The same Token right there. There was one the number band trapping down the New York area. And then G.I. Brass came in after them. You see? So he got to really scale, you know, and then we had a little band again who tracked down the area, which was Chapter 5. And then we had small acts and all of them. But when you watch at the major band, them what was making the roots in the United States and around the globe was Jam Band, Eddie and the Movements and them guys, Mila and the King, Imagination Brass and those guys. You see, so we have to discipline ourselves. As Ringo just tell you, practice is the major thing and full time. You can't jump in from band to band and think you're going to make it in life. When a band traveling by on the team, and then when you come back, you turn on your sax, or you turn on your guitar, or your piano, and then you want to make it big as a musician, it don't work that way. Good night.
All right, good night, caller. That's our last call for the night. Jamster, jump in.
I wanted to respond to something Wingrove said. I think it's great that those guys managed to get it to work back then. He talked about professionalism, but he's setting up a kind of catch-22 because you can't just say, it's like he's saying professionalism is the band-aid that's going to fix. But then you can't just put up professionalism and say, well, this is how you're going to get things to work. If there's no underlying training and training and people they're not creating the music that's going to get them the money to take it to that next level where they can be full-time musicians, then I don't really think that's the solution. That plays a big part, but I mean you have to start somewhere. You have to start with a great song, some great songs. Then you have to hook up yourself with a great producer, and then you have to work on the overall package. And then if you work on the overall package and then you get some shows and then you take it to the next level, next thing you know you're on tour, then you could talk about professionalism. So I don't think that's at the root of the issue. The other thing I wanted to talk about was another caller mentioned, I think it was Johnny was talking about geography. I don't think it's geography, I think it's mentality rather than geography. Can somebody explain to me why Antigua is less than 60 nautical miles from St. Kitts? How is it? It's just amazing, it just boggles my mind. How is it? There's all this stuff going on in Antigua. You have writers collectives in Antigua, like Adrian pointed out, writing for Trinidadians and stuff. You have this vibrant music scene, and it's somehow it's not happening here. Antigua is not that much different to St. Kitts. Anguilla. I mean, somebody needs to explain to me. It's not geography, it's mentality. The whole idea that somehow a collaboration is like a treasonous offense. like if the bass player for Grandmasters plays with small axe, we have to have his head. I mean, come on.
But you know what? I mean,
all of these things don't happen anywhere else. Everybody works together.
Like I'll tell you something, right? I've seen this happen live. Been in a studio, right, with a producer, and the producer is thinking to himself, you know what? This particular sound that I've heard on this other producer's track would work well for this record. And as much as he'd stay there and even lament about what his producers do and all this kind of thing, he pick up the phone and call and be like, oh yeah, you want to do this thing, how you did it? Hold on, I'll send you something. Send him the exact settings, the plugin, the exact, no questions asked. Send it over, use it. He go back and cuss him the next day, But if that fella call and ask him, he'll send back over something too. You understand? Because they understand that we all have to work together. Whether or not I approve of what you're doing, we know we have to work together to make this thing happen.
You can't let the trees obscure the view of the whole forest, not the small things. It's mentality, not geography.
But I mean, I think that we've trivialized, the collaboration part of our music so much that it doesn't even seem as if that we're able to, see a deal when it's there. I mean, we've heard rumors of, people wanting songs. We hear Byron Lee liking some of the music, and I can't imagine that he wouldn't have liked some of the music out of St. Kitts. I mean, why he didn't play it, I guess it's a whole nother show. Adrian.
Well, just a couple of things I made notes of. Wingrove's point about the two bands being professional, that's why I agree both bands were professional, but if I remember correctly, the Toucan band was professional for almost 20 years. we weren't traveling as much as the Jazz Brass, But everybody in the band.
And Rock calling to support you with that.
Yeah, Rock was right. You know, everybody in the band, that is what they did for a living, and made enough money that they did very well, I think, you know, and when you see them, you can ask them that question. I think that the music festival, as the points that were being made earlier, a lot of responsibilities get thrown to the music festival, and we have other festivals on the island that happen. Carnival, there's Culturama,
Latin Fiesta.
There's Latin Fiesta. There's the homegrown, which Crucial Banky has tried from time to time. I've worked with him.
And then there was something in Virtual,
which was very well attended. We do not support. We need a festival. The homegrown festival needs to be paid some attention, because this is where you get the showcase for local groups and acts, and you pick the best from that to go forward to, like, if I needed 4 acts for the music festival, you go and you see which were the 4 best and you pick.
It's a stepping stone.
Exactly. So, you know, we have to be careful. You can't just throw anybody who comes up on the music festival, because some of them are good and some are not so good. The music festival has also, beside the actual artist, been a sort of a field where a lot of skills have been improved. We have engineers, people, crews that work, local crews, and a lot of them have been attuned to what's happening and learn skills, not in an academic way, but learn it on the job training, if you want to call it like that. And right now, I would go as far as to say this, that in terms of some of those skills, St. Kitts and to some extent Nevis has some of the better engineers around the region, in so much so that we export in some of them. Asim is one. I mean, people go to St. Martin, Anguilla, Antigua to ply their trade, and it's mostly engineers doing that. And I must say that area is something that we could expand upon. So it's not something that's not happening. It's just that it needs to be tweaked a bit so that we can get more people involved. But the areas where we don't see much, I come back to the main three, the agency managers and the producers. That is an area, we have guys who run studios who are recording engineers, and a lot of them improving their skills. But we don't have any studio producers, people who pull talent together and hear things and we don't have very much of that. That is very important. So I don't want to say a whole lot and tie up the time, but I think those areas are the most important. And that course Gary spoke about, I'm very interested in it. I'm going to see if I can get some more information from him on that, because I think it's one thing that it's an area that we can start from to build. Because if we could get 10 ASIMs at this point, you know, when I came up, you didn't have opportunities to do that. And now that we have Full Sail and all these colleges, it's not cheap, but it's very, I mean, if you're good and you produce your credentials, it can help us, and you can help individuals get out there. The same thing needs to happen for the musicians. I find the artists who do the songwriting and present the singers, that's one area. But the musicians, it doesn't mean that the musicians don't improve themselves and shouldn't be able to play. You know, they need some training too. And I find that we have too many musicians in too many of the bands who are not really musicians. I wouldn't even know what the right word is, but they're not, you know, they're not skilled on the instruments, and that is something that is very serious. Yes. In a lot of other areas of the world, if you go to Trinidad or Jamaica somewhere, but in Trinidad in particular and Barbados, a lot of the musicians in the bands are very, very, very good. That's 3 varies I use, but they are excellent. And it doesn't mean a lot of guys who play keyboards in the bands, you take them off the keyboards and put them behind a piano, they can't play anything. And it's something that's very unfortunate. But, you know, it's a drum machine, and we have really programmers, not really keyboard players. Right. And, you know, the guitarists, when you look at guitarists who are really excellent, I mean, we have very few. Bass players, you know, I know we have a few. We do have a few, but it's not something that is, you know, a lot of guys not interested in improving their talents. Yeah. So
but
that's something we have to work on.
I mean, this is something that we've spoken about. As a fellow bass player, I could sit down and have a conversation with you about bass players. It's funny how I could go and talk to a keyboard player and ask him who you listen to. and he can't name 3 keyboard players. You have sax players that can't name 1 other sax player on the island right now. And this isn't in isolation, like this seems to be what's the norm.
Mentality, not geography.
And
When you come back to what you spoke about earlier, the appreciation of music that I think all of us agree needs to happen in the schools. If you have an appreciation of music, and I'm a bass player, and I know I listen to 10 bass players, but this is my favorite, at least I have a group. But a lot of people just learn a bunch of notes, I call it. They have no idea how those notes fall into chords and harmony, and then that's it.
And there's something to be said for somebody that could take up a bass, a piano, and play a classical tune, but chooses to go and play soca. You understand? And you could hear the difference. You could hear the difference because I don't have to. Okay, if I want to play soca, it doesn't mean that I just need to only learn these 3 notes because that's what works for soca. You understand? A musician is a musician, and you choose what type of music you want to play. You understand? And I feel music in the schools would go a long way. I mean, I really love to see the steel pan that's coming out a lot of the schools. And sometimes I wonder just how involved it is musically in terms of them learning the notes. Do they learn tonic sulfur? I'm not too sure. But I mean, seeing that coming out of the schools is very encouraging. But I would like to see a lot more of that and the music appreciation coming out, especially now with CSEC coming out with the performing arts for the A level. And I know they're doing entrepreneurship and a bunch of other ones. But it's good to see that like the CXC Council has really been looking at what we need and what we need to develop industries and putting forth this for us now to go and take it and utilize it.
Okay, as a DJ on the panel, Jamster, you get the last word. 30 seconds.
Okay, well, this is not so much DJ related, but I know in the past, this would be a great path of the education if the workshops. I know the music festival tends to have workshops attached, where you go and you get to sit down with this cool musician, and he'll teach you some things. I think that's something that needs to be hyped a lot more than it has been in the past. Because I remember I mentioned it at some point last year, and the person I mentioned said, "Yeah, but they still have." I said, "But you see, I didn't even know." Imagine I work on the radio, and sometimes I don't even know this stuff is going on. So I'm thinking one of the easiest way to get the education ball rolling, if we want to take our music industry to the next level, is to get these workshops and also move them away from just the music festival. This is something I've actually talked about, and I'm sure I'm talked to the two of you about this before, where it would be nice if we could really set up some technical workshops for different disciplines, managers, bass players, keyboard players. We bring in people, you talk to them, you have the instruments there, and you point out.
Well, there are workshops, Music Festival has been having workshops.
I would love to see them hyped up more.
All right.
Because these things are pretty interesting.
Okay, guys. I gave you 30 seconds. You took 300, but that's okay. Anyway, just real quickly, again, we want to thank you very much for joining us tonight on the round table, part 2 of the music discussion. As you can tell, I mean, there's still a lot more, to go. We talked about collaboration. We talked about money, education, continuity. I mean, and what the DJs do and all of that stuff. But I don't think any of that stuff is going to work unless, we come together. I found a quote or whatever it is on when I was, trying to find some stuff to say that makes sense on this program. And it says, everyone is fighting for a bigger part of the existing slowly shrinking pie. Instead of thinking of baking a bigger and tastier one, innovation gets stifled, that is. Startups get killed, and in the long term, everyone suffers. And I think we're at that stage right now. We're hoping that our discussion would have provided food for thought for some of you guys out there, whether you're a musician, whether you're an entertainer, you sing, you're a manager, promoter, producer, whatever. We hope that we were able to provide you with some information that you may now take and use so that we could see some progress here in St. Kitts, as we see in so many of the other islands around us. I want to again thank the callers and thank the panelists as well for joining us on ZIZ TV Channel 5 and 96.1 on radio. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time with a powerful topic. We're going to look at the power of the media. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Good evening, St. Kitts. Good evening, Nevis.
It is a historic moment for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Special good night to those radio listeners, those viewing on television, and those following us via the internet.
And one of the things that I would like to see established